Blog Talk Radio.
The dollar buys a nickel's worth. Banks are going bust. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat.
Welcome to Truth Talk.
Those weapons of mass destruction got to be somewhere.
With Paul Webster.
First year, global governance with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis.
And Chance George.
President Bush signed a formal agreement that will end the United States as we know it.
On Global F.A.C.T Radio.
Nope, no weapons over there.
People who have been yelling, oh, the UN's going to take over global
conspiracy theories.
They've been crazy, but now they're right.
Maybe under here.
But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in...
Okay, well, that's one I've actually heard before. I've queued it up in clips for people. That was Dan Rather on the day of 9/11 when he first saw the building come down, and he only said it once. He said that did look like reminiscent of well-placed dynamite. Now, to the first glance, it does look pretty suspicious. What do you think of that comment?
I really can't say much. It's based on speculation. The media reports at the time were based on what was happening, and no one really knew what was going on. And I just find it also interesting, and not in the spirit of ad hominem attacks or anything, but it's amazing to me how the truthers or any conspiracy theorists in general will denounce the mainstream media, and they're not credible, and they're slaves to Rupert Murdoch, and I'm sure you've heard a lot of the rhetoric, right? But
we know Rupert Murdoch.
Yeah, but so Dan Rather, who worked for CBS, which normally no truther would ever watch CBS, and as far as I don't watch mainstream media, and not because I feel that they're malicious or they spread lies. It's a festival of ignorance, and I really don't buy into it. And also, the truthers, there is nothing about dynamite. So when he says it was well-placed dynamite, all I ever hear about is nanothermite and the magic pixie dust that brought the buildings into their own footprint. I never heard anything about dynamite, so I don't feel like this clip is really does anything for the cause, really. It was the speculation of a news reporter who most truthers deem to be a disinformation agent and a liar, and I don't really see how this really has any bearing on what we're talking about right now.
All right, now before I get Ainsworth's take on it, because I'm sure he's got a whole other story on that, I believe that when conspiracy theorists, I'm just going to try and give my point of view because I happen to be one of them, but when conspiracy theorists quote something from an actual incident that happened on the first day, when you get the first day reports, it almost seems like that's when a lot of things that you never hear ever again happen. So that's where this clip came from. It was on the first day that someone mentioned that the first idea they thought was it was well-placed dynamite. It looked like a controlled demolition. Now then, like you say, we always say that there's no way that mainstream media is credible. So on one hand, you're saying that it's an uncredible source, but on the other hand, we're using it. So that's a very good point. How you're saying.
Thank you.
But let's get Ainsworth's take on that. Ainsworth, what do you think about that?
Well, that was Dan Rather talking about the collapse of 7 World Trade Center, which took place at 5:20 p.m. It was the third building that fell, and a lot of people to this day aren't even aware of the fact that a third skyscraper fell on 9/11. 7 World Trade Center was not part of the original World Trade Center complex. It was north of Vesey Street. It had been owned by Larry Silverstein prior to 9/11, and prior to his becoming the leaseholder for the other World Trade Center complex. That happened about 6 months before September 11th, 2001. The collapse of 7 World Trade Center is a topic which I'd like to go into some detail on, but Dan Rather's report on it is just sort of the stunned and incredulous outburst of somebody who is looking at it, and he can't believe that he's seeing another skyscraper collapse that day. 7 World Trade Center did suffer from fires. It did suffer from structural damage from falling debris. I heard Evan say that the buildings collapsed in their own footprint, the North and South Towers. This is not true. They created a 1,300-foot debris field. Damage to the Deutsche Bank building permanently ruined that building, and it had to be torn down years later. Damage to the World Financial Center was severe. A 4-ton section of steel was found on the roof of the Winter Garden. Damage to 7 World Trade Center, as I say, across Vesey Street from the North Tower, is seen in one of the pictures, I believe, that Evan contributed to the website. So the nature of buildings that blow up and out and send huge chunks of steel and debris in all directions are not consistent with what would be a gravitational
I'm sorry to cut
collapse.
you off here, but I thought we were talking about the Dan Rather quote.
I am talking about the Dan Rather quote to some degree. The Dan Rather quote is about 7 World Trade Center. And 7 World Trade Center was so hard to explain because it wasn't hit by a plane.
Yes,
and it wasn't a raging inferno.
You are aware that the picture I posted, there was the entire corner of the southwest corner of that building was damaged by the falling debris from WTC2, as you just claimed.
So
and it
you
also
do
had
admit
a huge
that they
gash
didn't fall in their own
missing out of a huge gash on the south-facing tower from floor 24 to 40. It wasn't just a fire. That's a wide misconception among the truthers. Is that why did it collapse from just a fire? It wasn't just a fire. There was a lot of damage to the base of that building.
Well, there was damage to that base of that building.
And it wasn't just that building, and a lot of truthers say, well, why wasn't it included in the commission report? Because it wasn't part of the original terrorist attack. The 9/11 commission report addressed the actual attack. It wasn't about everything that got damaged. Okay, if that was the case, it would have been another 500 pages long. You talked about the Glacier Bank being damaged. There was the Verizon building.
All right, now I don't mean to cut Evan off in his point, but basically we've strayed from the actual clip itself, and we're now just getting into to different ones. So as Evan was bringing up the 9/11 Commission, Ainsworth, in one of his clips that he sent me, there is a 9/11 Commission clip, so that would probably be a good time to bring up that clip. Let me scroll through what number it is. 9/11 Commission, number 6. Okay, so I'm going to play Ainsworth's next clip, and then I'm going to give the floor to Evan because he was midpoint, so I don't want to cut him off and sound unfair. So here's a 36-second clip, and this is people who actually wrote the 9/11 Commission. All right, here it is. Maybe.
So there are all kinds of reasons. We thought we were set up to fail. We got started late. We had a very short time frame. Indeed, we had to get it extended. We did not have enough money. They were afraid we were going to hang somebody, that we would point the finger.
Lee and I write in our book that we think the commission in many ways was set up to fail because we had not enough money. We didn't have enough time. We'd been appointed by the most partisan people in Washington.
Okay, Evan, there's two actual writers of the 9/11 Commission there giving.
And who was that I heard, Chance? Who were those two people?
Ainsworth, do you have the names of these two individuals?
One of those is Tom Keene, and I believe the other one is Lee Hamilton. The first one, I believe, was Lee Hamilton. The second voice was Tom Keene.
Now, they were actual members of the 9/11 Commission report.
That's correct.
So what do you think about those guys basically
Oh,
saying
well,
that.
I actually agree on that point, because the 9/11 Commission report was set up to fail because some of the same people that were covering up their own shortcomings were served on this commission, and one of them is, I don't know if you're aware, Porter Goss, who's now, I think he's now the director of the CIA, I believe, or at the time, he was given a warning by, I don't know if you know, being a truther, I don't know if you read about the Graham report, which Dr. Graham, he was a dentist that lived across the street from Jamal Khan, who was renting out the apartment to the alleged hijackers, and he issued that report. He called the FBI. The FBI referred it to Porter Goss, and Porter Goss never did anything about it, and then he served on the commission. So, I mean, of course he's not going to comment on that. It's embarrassing to him. So I really have nothing else to say to this. I mean, I know you guys kind of have me pegged for the supporter of the entire wholehearted 9/11 Commission report, but I'm really not. There's just certain things I don't agree with, but on this one I'm going to have to agree that it was set up to fail, and it was set up to be biased.
If I might interject then.
1 second there, Ainsworth. I'll get right back to you. No, I co-host the show with Paul Webster. He's another member of WeAreChange Paris here in Canada.
How's it going, guys?
He actually has a question about for Evan about that.
Yeah, sorry, Evan. It's been bugging me since. So, I believe that you were a full-out believer in the story myself, right? So I thought we were going to have a full heated debate here, and you're going to have points all written down. He's going to have points all written down. You guys agree to disagree in a few things, and this is still great radio. But I'm just trying to get you clear here, Evan. You believe there was a cover-up. I heard you say that before. But
absolutely.
But I don't understand. Why shouldn't it be a huge issue then? Why shouldn't we be all up in arms and addressing this and trying to figure out every single human in the world freaking up in arms? That's what my question. I know we don't want to. You wanted the format for him to ask you stuff, but it's bothering me. Why don't we go up in arms and freak out and want to know what's going on?
Well, is it any surprise to you? The government lies. The government covers things up. The government steals. I mean, is it?
No, that's the whole.
We all know this
movement. That's what everybody's freaking
out. Yeah, but I mean,
about.
can you tell me what one thing the Truther movement has accomplished over in 11 years this happened? What have they accomplished?
I'm sorry to say, I mean, that's because there's people like who I'm talking to that don't want to fight. Yeah, you gotta have
but the fight. All right, and I understand. I kind of sense a grudge against me, but
no, not at all.
Okay,
not at all.
If corrupt governments,
let
me finish. If corrupt governments are ever toppled and the financial apparatus that enslaved people are ever abolished, it's not going to be because people like yourself hosted a radio show or posted articles on the internet. It's going to come from activism. It's going to come from grassroots uprising. And you want to know something? A lot of the truthers I see are perfectly content with going on Facebook and arguing with strangers about it rather than actually doing anything. Look at Occupy Wall Street.
This is the next small step up. It's going on Blog Talk Radio, right? And this is still nothing compared to going out in the streets with a sign and screaming at people. But that's my question. Like, this is a huge world issue that we know the 911 Commission screwed up. It was an absolute flop. And we know that they had something to do with it because
I attribute it to incompetence mostly. Incompetence because they had the ability to prevent 9/11 and they didn't. Incompetence.
Yeah, but I mean direct ability, telling NORAD to stand down. You even said about Lieutenant Anthony Schaefer.
As a truther, then you realize that there were training exercises going on that day. So the notion could be drawn. Dick Cheney and Norman Mineta, they gave the stand down order and they were covering up there, but the fact is there were training exercises going on that day. Now, if they had bombed their own military personnel doing these exercises, you guys would be on the same show saying it was an inside job, they killed people. It's really inconsequential to think about it that way.
So you just think it was an absolute flop by the government, and it still was basically their
I agree. I think it was based purely on incompetence. Some of the things we're going to get into later in the show, obviously, but there's some theories. The truthers are just way off. It was a swing and a miss.
In spite of that, I will say that there's people out there that will say that I'm a truther, and I say that aliens did it. And now everybody can say that truthers say aliens did it, and therefore that's wrong.
What I notice is there's different factions of the truth movement. It's like any political persuasion or religion. There's different viewpoints on the same thing.
Well, we'll get into that.
Yeah,
Sorry,
we sure will.
I appreciate you answering that question. That absolutely answers it. Thanks.
All right, let me cut Paul off here because he's going to take us on a whole other angle. So basically, Evan's basically trying to state, if I'm correct, that he believes there is a cover-up of 9/11, but it's to cover their own ass, looking like they were negligent. So you would more say Bush and Cheney were more.
Well, let's be honest here. I mean,
it's wider. It's deeper.
You know, Bush was just. I mean, he was just a sorry excuse for a leader, and I mean, it's very. How could you have respect for a man that can't even speak intelligently or conduct himself in such a way? And then, but the same people that say he's this idiot and they also say he's a criminal mastermind and he orchestrated these attacks, and it just kind of really contradicts itself.
Now to back Evan up, now this is just my own personal belief. I'm a 9/11 truther who thinks that 9/11 was an inside job, but to back Evan up, I agree that there's no way George Bush is involved. The actual physical man himself, the president, George Bush, if he was involved in anything, it's covering up his own negligence.
Absolutely, because you could see the video of him that day when he was told about it. I mean, it's just absolute shock and awe on his face. It wasn't, I imagine someone that planned this whole thing and orchestrated it and getting that kind of news would maybe do some kind of a nod or a wink or something. No, he looked completely shocked. And
now, that being said, I would think many different things about his father, though. I know that
I would too.
I would think that I haven't been able to speak on the show for a long time.
I know, but there's a bunch of 9/11 conspiracy guys hosting the show, so we're actually really on your side, and all our points are trying to bring up your stuff. So I don't want Evan to feel like he's outnumbered.
No, it's all right. Take Ainsworth. I'm fine.
Okay, we'll take Ainsworth then. What's up?
Well, I mean, the point that the commission was set up to fill, you got to ask the key question: why?
Well, we already answered that, Ainsworth. I mean, I already told you what they're trying to hide. They're trying to hide their own shame and embarrassment.
Well, no, it might go a lot wider and deeper than that. And maybe it requires much more understanding of things that the world is perhaps not ready for to see. I don't know. I mean, there's been almost a global blackout
I don't
on 911 truth
for a while, but the thing is, there are financial interests in this country that really run the country, and the president doesn't have anything to do with it. And they don't elect people like Bush and Cheney to cook up these maniacal, boat-rocking world domination conspiracies. They elect these people to show them favoritism and repeal Glass-Steagall and plunder the middle class. And it's the same story. There's really... I see what you're saying, Ainsworth, because
I'm chomping at the bit to get to some points, and all I can say is that you have to look back perhaps as far as 1945 to gold stolen during the Second World War. You have to look at issues.
I mean, you're aware, though, that Bush and Cheney were not even alive. I mean, they're alive, but they weren't in office. They had nothing to do with government at that time. I mean, there's different interests.
I'm looking back to a conspiracy.
Well, like I said earlier,
even strangely enough, one of the 911 commissioners, when questioned, and I believe his name is Bob Carey, said that this is a conspiracy going back 30 years.
Okay, and by that he meant?
Well, there's a lot going on that's not necessarily seen, but specific targets were hit within the World Trade Center tower.
Absolutely.
Do you think that where the Trade Center, the crashes into the Trade Center towers were an accident? Do you think
really
that
trying
the
to follow you
Securities
along
Exchange
jumping
Commission
all over the
records
place.
in
We're
7
talking
World
about
Trade
1945, then we're talking about the World Trade. I mean, can you please?
I'm talking about billions of dollars put into slush funds that have helped change governments around the face of the earth, and I'm talking about
All right. Like I was trying to hit the buzzer about 2 seconds ago, and it won't let me hit it automatically. But you guys are basically starting to talk over each other. Ainsworth hasn't had a couple minutes in a little while, so we're going to give him at least 3 or 4 minutes to go.
Whatever. Just ask a question.
No.
We'll give it back. Answer it. Give it back.
We're going to give Ainsworth at least 3 or 4 minutes to go from 1945 all the way to his point now, get to where he wants to bring this question, and then we're going to give Evan as much time as he wants to answer this.
You got a pen, Evan?
Yeah, write down all the points you
Yeah,
want. Evan.
let me get a pen and paper here. 1945 to 2001. All right, I'm ready.
Okay, Evan's on mute. I'm on mute. Ainsworth is on go. All right.
All I'm going to suggest with regards to 1945 is you might want to get a copy of a book called Gold Warriors by Sterling and Peggy Seagrave. And that will explain it far more thoroughly than I can. It is a detailed rundown on how world governments have been using stolen gold to finance manipulation of the entire world. To bring it up much more close up to date and make it close to home, the day before September 11th, 2001, Donald Rumsfeld was seen on TV talking about 2.3 trillion missing dollars at the Pentagon. His right-hand man, Dov Zakheim, had been selling squadrons of F-15s and F-16s and God knows whatever other pieces of our arsenal to his other country of allegiance, Israel, as surplus for pennies on the dollar. Strangely enough, the part of the Pentagon that blew up the next day was the Office of Naval Intelligence, where people were working on